Welcome to the Get Down. I'm Cleve Mesidor, CEO and Managing Editor of Butterscotch Media. Thank you for taking this journey with me. We are the only podcast that provides an inclusive and comprehensive view of Web3 and DeFi. We operate from the vantage point that the crypto industry is not a monolith. Count on us for news and stories about Black, Latino, indigenous segments of crypto. Each episode, you'll be joined by my co-host, Ritzy P, and we will talk about what's happening in policy, discuss industry trends, and explore market research. These topics will also be covered in Butterscotch Media's newsletter, Choose, which is our weekly tip sheet to make sure you are in the know. You may be wondering, what is Butterscotch Media? Well, we are a niche digital news studio that exclusively covers diverse segments of the blockchain and cryptocurrency ecosystem. Butterscotch is the only outlet that will help deepen your understanding about Black, Latino, indigenous communities in Web3 and DeFi. We enthusiastically fill this gap in media coverage. Many are not even aware that communities of color, the working class, young people are the earliest and largest adopters of crypto. We are fueling this $3 trillion industry, but we are essentially invisible figures. Well, no more. Butterscotch Media is making sure that you have a front row seat to get to know the dynamic and diverse early crypto pioneers, and you are aware of what's happening. And our sweet spot is the intersection of policy and inclusion. Count on the Get Down for everything you need to be in the know. Now, what should you expect to hear on the podcast? Well, the Get Down is the heartbeat of Butterscotch Media. It's where you will see and hear from changemakers, policymakers, as well as entrepreneurs. I'm particularly excited to have Ritzy P co-host our podcast because she is a seasoned and award-winning podcaster. She is also co-founder of Hola Metaverso, and she is active in the Latino Web3 community. She is amazing and will ensure the audience has fun while also learning. We are your pipeline to an industry that is transformative, disruptive, and exciting. We're going to be talking about legislation, scrutinizing if bills at the federal, state, and local levels focus on inclusion, capital formation, and access to capital for entrepreneurs. We'll also discuss use cases and also what founders are building. And we'll not just focus on movers and shakers. We'll also interview the skeptics, those people who are concerned about crypto. We will get into all of that. Now, I do want to share where the name Butterscotch comes from. I know some of you may be wondering. Well, I'm a Gen Xer. I was born at the birth of hip hop and rap music. And a few years ago, Netflix did a documentary called The Get Down. And in The Get Down, the young guy was in love with a Latina in his building. He wrote her a poem called Will You Be My Butterscotch Queen? For some reason, that always stayed with me. So when I thought about the name to this podcast, I thought about the two of them, and I thought about each person on this podcast. We want to ask them if they will be our butterscotch king or queen. So that's where the name comes from. Now, I'll tell you a bit about myself. Beyond me growing up as a Gen Xer in New York City during the age of hip hop, I am not just CEO and managing editor of Butterscotch Media. I'm a fan of Web3 like many of you. I've been working full time in crypto for over 6 years, but my background is actually in public policy and communications. I worked in Congress, I served in the Obama administration, I have helped to shape policy. But storytelling is also part of my journey. I started my career at CNN's Washington Bureau. I've been working for Forbes as a contributor for over a year, and I focus on inclusion in Web3 and DeFi. That is the place from which I started Butterscotch Media and this podcast. I've already shared with you that I've been working full time for over 6 years. And the vibrant ecosystem that entrepreneurs and innovators have created is incredible. And I wanted to use the motto of digital media to tell those stories because I know those of you out there who have FOMO, who have heard about crypto, you want to know about diverse segments of this industry. And I want Butterscotch Media to be at the forefront of telling you those stories. Like I said, crypto is not a monolith, regardless of what you see in the news. There are so many diverse segments, and I want to make sure that the audience gets to experience them, know them, learn about them. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that in our tip sheet in Choose, which is our newsletter. And we'll do that here on the podcast in each episode to tell you about the inclusive early pioneers, innovators, disruptors who make this wonderful blockchain and cryptocurrency space work. That is what the Get Down is all about. We're going to make sure that you know about Black, Latino, indigenous communities, creators, founders, also the policymakers, and even those retail investors out there. I know a lot of you are excited about Bitcoin, so am I. So we'll get into that conversation as well. For many of us, Bitcoin is our North Star. The Get Down is not just Butterscotch Media's podcast. It's your podcast. It's your source. So make sure you tune in to each episode so you can hear from Ritzy and me. I want to get you excited because I am. So check us out on our website, butterscotch.media, where you can get more information and stay up to date on our latest events. And also subscribe to our newsletter. We're going to continue the conversation we're having on the podcast in the newsletter, so be sure to subscribe. And follow us on X. Our handle is at butterscotch360. And make sure you follow us on your favorite podcast app to get notified about new episodes. We're going to be having some exciting conversations, and I want you to stay on this journey with me. Thank you for tuning in.